I have been meaning to make a video about MPB on this channel for the longest friggin' time. And today is that day. We finally do it, while also making this series get its own little comeback. Essentials, genre essentials that I've been doing for the past couple of years, but I've not done one of these videos in quite some time. Well, bringing it back for specifically MPB feels right. In the dawn of summer, at the time of year where this music hits the hardest, we're bringing it back. We're going to be talking about música popular brasileira, a genre of music that was birthed in Brazil, of course, sung generally mostly in Portuguese, and was birthed in the 60s and became at its peak in the 1970s, but did start to decline as time moved on. It very much had a bit of a short burst of a peak, to the point where even the Brazilian government apparently endorsed it and promoted it as like national music in response to kind of compete with rock music at the time that was growing. Bit of an odd thing, but even the Brazilian government were out here listening to some MPB. Yeah, that's right. Whether that's a good thing or not, who knows? But that is what happened apparently. And yeah, just a style of music that I've always found to be really underrated. Like when you think of genres of music that music lovers tend to gravitate towards the most, I mean, it's definitely very apparent that I think the Western world has its favorites and doesn't necessarily listen to as much music that's spoken, you know, in a non-English accent, it seems. A non-English language, non-English accent, what the hell am I trying to say? A non-English language. I mean, I think music nerds are more inclined to listen to stuff outside their wheelhouse and outside their comfort zone and outside their own country, more so than the average person. I do think that is true. But even still, there are biases within that. And you do just seem to see MPB get a little disrespected, a little disregarded, and I don't like it. That is why I wanted to make this video. I mentioned it in the Paste magazine video as well, and there was a comment saying I should do it. So here we are, bringing dreams to reality. Make sure as well, before you continue this video, consider checking out my Patreon, because you get requests on this series as well. If you want to see me do a particular genre, then you can support me over on there and support me and get shout outs, get to be part of the Discord server, get your own perks as well, and you might see more videos like this in the future. But yeah, here we go, 5 essential MPB albums according to this guy who lives in England. Yeah, I'm the expert. Feels impossible to not start with Jorge Ben, doesn't it really? It would just be wrong. This is like the Godfather. This is like the dude. This is like the GOAT, the man, the powerful god of MPB music. The history of MPB music would not be the same without this guy. There's always that one person, one artist within a genre that just has it in its chokehold, is the master of it. And I think Jorge Ben is up there with the very best. What an artist this guy is. I could have gone with any album. That's a crazy thing. His albums are just so ridiculously good. They're rich. They're powerful. They're so beautiful sounding. The melodies are gorgeous. They're just so fantastic. Every track just makes you feel good. And on this album, it probably is the definitive Jorge Ben album for sure. But yeah, I could have gone with Africa Brazil. I could have gone with some of his earlier stuff as well. It's ridiculous, really. But yeah, love this album. Brother, fantastic singing on that one. The kind of like callback vocals are great. The instrumentation is wonderful on this thing. Yeah, this is an essential. This is probably up there with the most essential album of this genre, I would say. And you could say there are other albums that rival it. But for me, I don't know. I think this is up there. Novos Baianos next. Oh, love this thing. Absolutely adore this thing. I think Jorge Ben is the most essential artist of MPB and has the most essential albums. This album is probably like my personal, undisputed, greatest album of the MPB genre. To me, this is the best I've ever heard. And good God, just incredible instrumental range on this thing. The way Preta Pretinha like builds as it goes on is just absolutely exquisite. are just so good. These tracks just have so much life to them. They just feel like they're pushing the sound a little bit further, going for a little bit more creative sounds to add to the diversity of the album, while also being rooted in MPB, obviously. Just absolutely love this thing. One of the happiest albums, one of the most joyful albums I've ever laid my ears on. Just an album if I ever feel like I want to stick it on and feel like I'm instantaneously going to be put in a good mood. This is up there with the very best. This is like sticking on some Shaka Khan for me. This is like sticking on some Stevie Wonder for me. Just that instantaneous feeling of everything is perfect. This album has that. Love this thing. And again, has to be in an essentials list for this genre. 100%. Eu sou inocente, eu sou inocente. Tom Zay, a bit of an unsung hero in this genre, I would say, although people that know him love him. And this album for me is a really strong one in the MPB world of music. I think it's a really, really interesting album with so much rich guitar playing on it. It really sounds so beautiful, but also quite harrowing at times. Like there's a bit of like an avant folk feel to some of these tracks that make it feel like you're listening to something Tim Buckley would do. I need to say Tim Buckley, I should say. That kind of like experimental, progressive sound in the world of rock, I feel like enters this world of Tom Zay on this album. Gives this album a really odd, diverse sound. But then you've got like tracks like Dodo Zeze, which is just so pleasing on the ears. That little diddle diddle diddle, it's just perfect. It just sounds so perfect. Makes you feel like you're walking through the streets of Portugal on the hottest day of the year. Like it is just so beautiful to listen to. But yeah, I do feel like this guy offers something a little bit different in the world of MPB. And like I say, that kind of folk sound, that kind of like darker sound pops up at times. I think it's really... Now, I was saying at the start that 60s and 70s was essentially the peak of this genre, but that's not to say it doesn't exist anymore, and it isn't thriving, because Ana Frango Electrico is definitely up there with the very best in this style of music at the moment. This is a very, very recent album. It came out in 2019. Ana Frango Electrico also had an album last year too, so this is a very recent artist who is in the game, putting out great music. I personally think that this album is the better album of the ones that we've heard so far. But Anna is just such a pleasant artist to listen to. The vocals are so cute. It's adorable. She's got a really, really lovely voice. It's absolutely just warming to listen to. And the tracks just kind of have a bit more of like an experimental feel at times as well, where it's kind of pushing outside of the boundaries of what MPB can be. It's not traditionally MPB, and maybe if you are a bit of a traditionalist of the genre, you might turn your nose up to some of these tracks because it's like, well, it's not necessarily only MPB. There's some kind of like jazz influence coming through at times as well. It's a bit art poppy as well. Yeah, tracks like Chocolate, Say No Cinema, with the way they kind of build at the end and have these really huge instrumental crash moments with the vocals going a bit more frantic. They sound fantastic. I mean, it's just such a fun album. I feel like it's such a treat to go from track to track, to constantly feel like it's meandering and going in these different directions. Such a fun listen. Only like 30 minutes as well. One of the best of the year it came out, and an essential for MPB. O vento no seu rosto sopra leve. The fifth and final pick for this MPB video, by the way, no particular order, all of these albums I think are equally as essential, and it's not going on a 5-to-1 list or anything like that. They are just 5 essential albums. Arthur Ricora is the fifth pick for me. I was just talking about how there's some jazz influence coming through on the Anna album, and this album is very much full of that as well. Just a beautifully arranged album with such incredible jazz influence, the samba influence coming through on these tracks as well. The combination of the instrumentation just feeling so like lively and in the moment with the kind of samba little dancey instrumentals is so cool. Like, it's so great. I mean, samba generally is such an influence on MPB anyway, but for me personally, I just think Arthur has a great combination of the kind of like jazzy sound with some of the sax coming through on these tracks, the trumpets coming through on these tracks, while also feeling so, you know, samba based at its core. It's great. Arthur is a great singer, a bit more low-key as a singer, but has his way of wriggling in your ears and creating such earwormy, fun, beautiful tracks. Again, super short album. I mean, that's one of the things with MPB music. You're not really sticking around having to spend hours and hours listening to albums. You could stick on this album, you could stick on another album from this list, and you've like done it in 1 hour, and you've listened to 2 essential albums in that time. Come on, you got to do it. You got to do it. Arthur Vicorai, legend of the game. And that is my 5th pick for this MPB Essentials video. And that is it from me. They are the 5 albums I believe are essential for Música Popular Brasileiro. I love saying that. I do not say it right at all, but I love saying it. It's so fun, so pleasing to say. And it's as pleasing and as fun as this genre of music. So glad I finally did this. This has been on the back of my mind for like 2 years, honestly. I've always been thinking like, I should do an MPB video. I should do this. I should do that. And I never did. I'm finally here to do it, and I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you've pulled some new recommendations. These aren't the only 5 albums. I could have carried on and done like another 10. And there's some artists I didn't even mention in this video that are absolutely like, I could get assassinated for not including them because they're so essential. You know, Chico Buarque is one as well. Milton Nascimento. Some of these names I'm not entirely sure how you say. I do apologize for pronunciation, but these 2 would probably be in a lot of essentials that I didn't mention. I just think these 5 I mentioned are a little bit more essential. Personally prefer them in terms of my own taste, so I'm putting my own bias in here a little bit. But that doesn't mean to say there won't be more videos on this genre in the future. So if you've enjoyed it, please like the video, please share it around, please subscribe and boost this video to make me more encouraged to do more like this in the future. And let me know in the comments, particularly if you're somebody from the country that I'm talking about here, because I'm no expert at all being from England. And what would you say about these albums? What would you pick? And regardless of where you're from, let me know what you think of the albums anyway. So thank you. As always, subscribe, check out my Patreon as well, support me over on there. Keep boosting these videos. Have a good day and goodbye.